Hi, this is Danita from Integrity Coding. I want to take some time and go over ICD-10 CM coding guidelines. For those students preparing for their AAPC, CPC National Board Exam, or even for your CCSP, knowing your coding guidelines is essential to pass this exam. It's also essential when you get that first coding job. I talked to so many students and they've gone through programs, but an emphasis was never placed on coding guidelines in their sequencing. So I'd like you to get your ICD-10 CM 2018 preferably, and I want you to open up to the very beginning of your coding guidelines. There was a time when I wasn't passing my exam. I was in the hairdresser's one day, and I had the foils in my hair, and I always brought my coding books with me. And I'm going to tell you, more often than not, if you're not passing your exam, I'm going to wager to bet that it is because you don't understand the guidelines surrounding certain codes. So I took my books with me one day, and I just started opening, and I'll never forget, it was about pregnancy. So I started to read what it was saying, and I always heard, yes, pregnancy trumps all. But I started to really pay attention to it, and then all of a sudden it just started clicking. It was a moment when I had no other distractions around me. I had nobody talking to me. It was just me and my coding books. And if you want to pass this exam, you need to be serious. You need to be diligent. You need to be intentional about it. It's not going to just fall on you. And I'm telling you, it's going to be one of the best feelings ever when you get that email saying that you passed your exam. So I want you to open up your ICD-10 CM books to the very beginning to your coding guidelines. There's a lot of really good information in here if you just take the time to read it. And again, I'm going to say the word intentional. You know, intentional means you have a purpose with it. You're not reading for the sake of reading. You're reading for the sake of understanding and knowledge. So in the beginning of your guidelines, it's an ICD-10 CM guidelines for coding and reporting. For me, I am in my Optum book. I am on starts on page 3. And it talks about format and structures. It talks about includes and includes, excludes, what they mean. I wanted you to pay attention to the words when it talks about coding signs and symptoms. It's under number B, under General Coding Guidelines. Again, B, and it's number 4, B4, signs and symptoms. Codes that describe symptoms and signs as opposed to the diagnoses are acceptable for reporting purposes when a related definitive diagnosis has not been established, parentheses, confirmed by the provider. Chapter 18 of ICD-10 CM, Symptom Signs and Abnormal Clinical Laboratory Findings, not elsewhere classified, contains many but not all codes for symptoms. I want you to pay attention just to that one coding guideline, coding signs and symptoms. So the example that I always give my students is appendicitis. If the provider states that they suspect that the patient has appendicitis, or let's go again, the confirmed diagnosis, appendicitis. If they also mention that the patient has diarrhea, vomiting, fever, you do not report those because those are assumed correlations with appendicitis. It goes along with appendicitis. And once you have, again, the key word, definitive diagnosis. Once you have a definitive diagnosis, you don't code those types of signs and symptoms. However, if they said the patient has appendicitis and he also complains of a sore throat or a cough, those are not assumed diagnoses that go along with appendicitis. In that case, you would code those signs and symptoms along with the appendicitis. It all hinges on the fact of what the provider documents. You cannot assume, but once you hear those words, the patient has XYZ, if it is a sign or a symptom that is an occurrence that goes along with this diagnosis, you don't code it separately. The reason I'm pointing this out to you is everything we do at Integrity Coding, I want to see these students pass the exam. So please pay special attention to all these little tips and notes and strategies, because it's going to help you eliminate a wrong answer. You can have a right code in the wrong sequence, and it's going to be wrong, and you're going to lose 2 points. So you want to get the right code in the right sequence to get those 2 points. So pay special attention to your coding guidelines. The next thing I want to point out to you in this video is when it comes to HIV. HIV is something you more than likely will be asked on the board exam. You're going to find HIV coding. It's in, let's see, Chapter 1, under Certain Infectious and Parasitic Diseases, Human Immunodeficiency Virus, HIV infection. Read this over and over and over. It's going to tell you when to code it primary. You have to look at the example. In your scenarios, ask yourself the who, what, where, and how. Why is the patient presenting? Is the patient presenting with an already confirmed diagnosis? Is it suspected? Is it an HIV but is not having any signs and symptoms at the time? ICD-10 has everything that you need to know to help you pass this exam. But if you're not aware of it and you don't have your notes highlighted, and if you don't have your books tabbed, so during the exam I flipped everything open. I had it right to HIV because I knew I was going to get asked that question. Because when I wasn't passing the exam, everything just started to click. I said, where am I missing it? It wasn't my instructor's fault. It wasn't that I didn't have good books, because AAPC prepares you very well. You need to take self-responsibility and read your coding guidelines. Have your books so well tabbed during the exam. If you have notes on a certain area, make sure you have it tabbed that you see, oh, there's notes right there. There's notes on cardiology. I tabbed it, because you don't want to go into the exam unprepared. You want to go in with the destination. I know where everything is. I know exactly where I'm going. Just like when you set out to go on a trip and you're going on vacation, you don't just sit there and say, the day of my vacation, where do I want to go? I don't know. I just hop in the car and let's just see where the car takes me. Nope. You're the driver of that car. You're in control for this exam. So study those coding guidelines, know them, listen to the way that they say it, because they're really good about saying sequence this first, put this second. So all the information is there. It's just a matter of you reading them. And remember, you don't have to memorize it. Your exam is open book. Tomorrow evening, Integrity Coding is having a 1.5 hour coding class on cardiac catheterizations. That is from 7 to 8:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. That is on Tuesday, February the 6th. Wednesday, February 7th. Pay attention to this. We're having a free, that's right, it's free. It's a free 2-hour ICD-10 CM coding class. Again, this is geared to the students preparing for their exams. So if you're looking for a free class, I have a handout that goes along with it. We're going through several coding questions. And I'm always going to back it up with, I say in my classes, there's a saying called put up or shut up. And I don't mean that disrespectfully. What I'm saying is know where your code is. Don't just have a code for the sake of having a code. You always want to ask yourself, why is the patient leaving their house to go to the provider's office? So look up your codes, know your sequencing, and it's going to be a very, very informative class. And again, it's free. You can't beat that. So you can register. If you go on to Eventbrite, I'm going to put the link right under this video. If you would like to join us, would love to have you, but you have to register. So again, Tuesday night we're doing cardiac catheterizations. That class is not free. That's $35. Wednesday night, it's a 2-hour free ICD-10 CM coding class. All right, if you have any questions, please email me at Danita, DANITA, @integritycoding.com. Thanks, everybody.